I watched a couple of booktube videos this morning that were my 10 favorite science fiction novels. Steve Donahue made one, and his was in response to a video made by Samwise. I will link both in the description. I decided to make this video because while I was watching Steve's, like 4 of his 10 are some of my favorite science fiction books, which leads me to believe that there might be something going for those other 6 in that top 10. I've got them set aside right now. I'm going to start looking for copies for myself. The same goes with Samwise. He's got like 3 books in his top 10 that I really enjoy. And so I really want to look at the rest of his as well. And so I'm making this video so you can see my 10 favorite science fiction novels, and maybe you like a few of them, and then you can check out the rest, because that is the joy of BookTube, is sharing your passion for different books and conning other people into reading them. So I want to start by saying these are my 10 favorite science fiction books. They are not the 10 best science fiction books. They are just the ones that mean the most to me. They are on this list because they are either just really good, they resonate with me unlike anything else, or they are what I would define as the best version of that type of novel, and we'll get into it as we go through these. But first, I'm going to go over some honorable mentions and why they're not in the top 10. Let's just dive right into them. The first one is going to be Startide Rising by David Brin. This could be in my top 10, but it's already in Steve's, and it's like right on the edge, so I wasn't going to put it in mine because then like half of my list would be the same as Steve's. Startide Rising is amazing. There is a reason why it won the Science Fiction Awards Triple Crown. It has world building that is more than Dune and slightly less than Malazan, but it's closer to Malazan. You are just dropped into this world and you got to figure it out. And it is wonderful. It is about humanity after they have uplifted dolphins and chimpanzees to sapience. Not sentience, because dogs and cats and most animals are sentient, but they are not sapient. There is a difference. And I like being pedantic about that. Now that humanity has uplifted these animals, they are part of this galactic society of other races that have uplifted species. And it is a very grim future when you look at these other societies, because a lot of them, it's like, hey, we uplifted you. We now own your race for about 10,000 years. So just deal with it, I guess. Seeing all this from the side of humanity and just how big, how long these civilizations have lasted, you really feel like you are these new little kids to the adult table. It's very good. The book is fast paced. It just rips from start to finish. I highly suggest that you go online and get like a character sheet. There was one that had like pictures. I can't find it now. I think it's still saved onto my phone. If I can find it, I will share it in the description. But I just suggest you get a list of the characters from the book. Just like, oh, this dolphin's name is this, they're an engineer. This dolphin's name is this, they're a scout. This human's name is this, they're a biologist, blah, 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 stuff like that. You want a list because the cast is huge and it makes the book a lot easier to enjoy if you have a little cheat sheet as you're reading it. Now, I just spent way too long talking about an honorable mention, so let's move on to the next one, and that's The Space Merchants by Frederick Pohl and C.M. Kornbluth. This book missed out on the top 10 because I got a couple of other books that are not only better, but just resonate with me a lot more, but I thought that I needed to mention this because it's one of the better vintage science fiction novels. It's from like 1949 or 1950. It is such a good satire of modern consumerism. In the book, it is illegal to not watch ads, and ad agencies have essentially taken control of civilization. They are the movers and shakers and the decision makers. You follow an ad exec as he is basically stripped of his authority and power and betrayed and sent off somewhere, and it's him digging his way back out of it. This book is very dystopian, very satirical. I highly recommend it to just about anyone because it's also super short. I mean, it might be 135 pages, and that's probably pushing it. I mean, any shorter and it would have been a novella, so definitely go check that out. And the next one is on here because it needs to be on here, but it just barely eked out of the top 10 because I don't think of it as a novel. It is a fix-up of a bunch of short stories, and the fix-up isn't very good, and the first story isn't very good. And that's City by Clifford D. Simic. And this is about humans who uplifted dogs and created robots to serve mankind and to serve the dogs. You start at the beginning of humanity kind of falling apart, and you go all the way into the future when these dogs are telling each other stories about these mythical beings called man that no one has seen in hundreds of years. And it's so good. And I mean, come on, it's science fiction built around doggies. It doesn't get better than that. So that's on on the honorable mentions because you should just look at it as a short story collection that is kind of tied together. This next one is on the list for one of the same reasons as Startide Rising, and it's because I would have put it in my top 10, but I got a couple things that I could squeeze out, and this was also on Steve's top 10, and that is The Demolished Man by Alfred Bester. I think it is Alfred Bester's best book, just like Steve said. It is this weird, not murder mystery, but more of a man in a society where people can read your mind, and the man wants to kill someone, and these are the links that he will go to do it, and does he do it? And you spend this whole time trying to figure out, is he going to pull it off? The crazy links he goes to get what he wants, and it's just wild. It's very good. It's a very quick read. Definitely need to check it out. And this last honorable mention is on here because I didn't want to put the Forever War in my top 10 because it's the Forever War. It's like it should be in everyone's top 10, honestly. But Joe Haldeman has a book that I like more than the Forever War, and it's a lot like The Demolished Man, and it's a lot like another book in my top 10, and that is All My Sins Remembered by Joe Haldeman. This is about a Anglo-Buddhist in the future, and he is peaceful, but there is a threat to his nation or conglomeration of people or something, and they want him to serve them, and he wants to serve them because he thinks that what they're doing is important. They take him in and they brainwash him and they turn him into this spy hitman that does horrific things. The whole book is him recounting these events, and you can see his mind fragment as the story goes through, and it is just messed up. I felt sick at the end of it. If you want a Joe Haldeman book and you've read The Forever War and you don't know where to go from there, read All My Sins Remembered. Nobody ever talks about this book. I don't know why. It's wild, and it is a very Joe Haldeman. So that was a nice meandering way of getting into my top 10 favorite science fiction books. Let's start with number 10, and that is Have Spacesuit Will Travel by Robert Heinlein. Now, as the official Heinlein hater of BookTube, I have a video on it. Go check it out. I had to put this in the top 10 because I think it is his best juvenile that I have read, and it is one of the core pillars of why I enjoy science fiction. It is just a teenager's adventure in space. It is fun, and the stakes are not very high. When I read it at 13, 14 years old, I was like, this is amazing. I love this. And it really kindled my love of science fiction, and reading it as an adult, I'm like, this is still so fun. The story is about a teenager who wins a spacesuit in a radio contest or TV show contest. It's like one of those things where it's like Marlboro Miles or the Monopoly game at McDonald's or something, where they give out these weird prizes, or back in the day when Pepsi was like, collect enough caps and you can get a jet, and then the kid tried to get a jet and Pepsi's like, oh, we were joking. And it's like, nah, bro, give me my jet. Well, in this, he wins a spacesuit, and they send it to him, and it's this ragged ass old spacesuit, and he decides to restore it. And so the beginning of the book is him restoring this spacesuit, and then one night he puts it on, and while he's testing his spacesuit, a spaceship lands and kidnaps him. So the story takes off from there. Very short, very fun read. I highly suggest it to anyone that hasn't read Heinlein because it doesn't have any of the weird baggage of later Heinlein, and it's just a fun read. Now, let's move on to number 9, and that is Willful Child by Steven Erikson. This book is the funniest science fiction book I have ever read. It is a spoof of Star Trek written by a hardcore Trekkie, and it shows. You have all of Steven Erikson's abilities as a writer just jammed into this mockery of Star Trek. There is so much social commentary in here. I loved every second of reading it. I laughed so much while I was reading Willful Child. I've said it before, but Willful Child reads like, what if Captain Kirk was the captain of the next generation starship, where the Federation's a little more tame, and they're not trying to do all these off-the-wall things and skirt the edges of the Prime Directive. They're not trying to cowboy up, but you got a captain that is, and he is equal parts insane and genius. You spend the whole book trying to figure out, is this guy just way smarter than everyone else, or is he a lunatic? And it's so good. I was really bummed out when I read that book, and it brought me nothing but joy. I'm keeping the other 2 in the series on the back burner for when I'm bummed out again and I really want to just laugh my butt off. For number 8, I have Betrayer by Aaron Dembski Bowden. This is book 24 in the Horus Heresy. Yes, the Horus Heresy, the Warhammer 40K prequel series about the Civil War in the Imperium of Man, where Horus betrays his father, the Emperor, and he has a fall from grace. I've said it before, before, and I'll just say it again. The Horus Heresy is the best modern retelling of Paradise Lost by John Milton. I don't know if they intended to do that completely at the beginning. Well, I think they did, and it just kind of got carried away. There's like 55 novels and then another 7 to wrap up the series, and now they're actually writing some more. So who knows? There's probably going to end up being 100 books in the series. I picked Betrayer because you're following the World Eaters, and the World Eaters, they're some of the most tragic space marines that betrayed the Imperium of Man, and that's because their Primarch, like the progenitor of their legion, sucks. And like, I understand why he sucks. His backstory's equal parts stupid and tragic, but by the time this book is taking place, he's insane. He's like a wild animal, and his legion is following him out of loyalty, but most of them hate him, just completely cannot stand him. They know what he's done to their legion, and they stayed loyal, and now they are having to lay in the bed they made, and it sucks all around. And they are partnered up with the Word Bearers, and they have invaded an ultramarine planet where the ultramarines train most of their space marines. Like, this is a planet dedicated to creating more space marines, training officers, all sorts of stuff like that. So it's going to be a very tough nut to crack, but they're going to try to do it. This story is one of the best bromances ever. You have Argel Tal and Karn the Betrayer. They are the ultimate of bros. And this book has some of the most memorable moments in the Horus Heresy beyond like the drop site massacre. And there's like the legacy of the ancients. So when space marines die, they get put into a machine called a dreadnought, and they don't get to die. They have to keep serving. Like, even in death, they serve. Well, these dreadnoughts are like the old heads. They don't play games with any of this new generation of space marines. Like, they have zero chill, and some of them are insane. Well, the Ultramarines breach the flagship of the World Eaters, and they're going to wreck this ship. They're going to turn this fight around. Well, there's no one left to defend the ship, and so the captain is forced to wake up all these half-insane dreadnoughts, and so you have some dudes speaking their mind, and one of them witnesses just the end of the book, and it is phenomenal. I love this because I love the World Eaters, and I love the Ultramarines, and there's a reason I love both of them. The World Eaters are what would have happened to the Ultramarines if their Primarch had sucked and betrayed them. There's so much honor and pride in the World Eaters, and there is a scene at the end of the book where you see what they should have been, and it is tragic. It is its own little microcosm of Paradise Lost in just that Space Marine Legion. I loved every second of it. You see how Bobby G, the Primarch of the Ultramarines, does not play around, does not care. He went toe-to-toe with 2 of his brothers, one of which turned into a demon, broke his back, and he's like, I ain't hear no bell. It's just crazy. The book is the perfect Horus Heresy book. If you're not invested in any of those Space Marine Legions, you probably don't care. If you don't know anything about Warhammer, you definitely won't care. But if you are a Warhammer fan, after you read the first 4 or 5 Heresy novels, just move on to the others. Read this one. This one is fantastic. It, of course, has a special place in my heart because it's all the legions I care about. It is a beautiful story, and it is action-packed from start to finish. And holy crap, I just talked about this for a really long time. So let's move on to number 7, and that is Heroes Die by Matthew Woodring Stover. Is this book science fiction? Yes. Is this book fantasy? Yes. So the best way to sum up why this goes in science fiction, and I'm going to vaguely quote a friend in a book group, and that is, the setting is predominantly fantasy, but the arc/theme of the book leans more into the science fiction side, and that's completely correct. This is very mild spoilers. The setting of the book is a fantasy world, but it's like an alternate Earth that people from actual Earth can access through some interdimensional thing. I don't know, like, it gets into it, but you don't need the nitty-gritty in this. And so while that fantasy Earth has things going on, the people that are traveling to it are people controlled by this dystopian civilization that is on Earth, that is completely built around the entertainment industry and getting eyeballs on the live streams. You know, not something that we can relate to at all, where these giant companies, all they want is your attention for as long as possible, and they'll do just about anything to get it. You know, hiring psychologists to make sure that their algorithms can manipulate you to waste time, you know, stuff like that. That would never happen happen in real life. The book is amazing. Matthew Woodring Stover is one of the best fight scene writers ever. The book has problems, but man, I was just hyped to 11 the entire time I was reading it. I loved the book. I need to read the rest of the books in the series. I know they are nothing like Heroes Die, but I don't care because I just like Matthew Woodring Stover's writing. I'm pretty sure I will like the rest of the series. This next one is the perfect encapsulation of the modern space opera. What is a space opera? It is not a big science fiction book that takes place in space. It's not a tome with a large cast like a lot of people define it as. Space operas are science fiction stories that usually involve space combat with melodramatic characters, lots of action and fighting. You know what is all of those things? Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. The book is all gas, no brakes from start to finish. It is very melodramatic, so much action, lots of space things. It's so good. I mean, all I have to say is Iron Rain. If you know, you know. Just so good. The Red Rising trilogy is amazing, but if I had to pick a favorite book and one that means the most to me, it's Golden Sun. I'm gonna guess quite a few of you have already read it, but if you haven't, go get yourself a copy of Red Rising. If you like Red Rising, but it doesn't completely work for you, definitely give Golden Sun a chance because it's completely different. Now, number 5, The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin is on Steve's list, and it has a lot in common with All My Sins Remembered and The Demolished Man because you've got this psychological aspect to it and this person's fractured psyche. It's my favorite Le Guin book. I love Ursula K. Le Guin, you know, Earthsea, Left Hand of Darkness. I cannot stand The Dispossessed, but you know, all of my favorite authors have a book I don't like. But The Lathe of Heaven is my favorite Le Guin novel, and it is because it is just so bizarre. Like Le Guin herself, I think, said something about she wrote this book like she was Philip K. Dick, and it shows. I really, really like it. And the story is about a man who lives in this world that pretty much sucks. It's not too far in the future. The world is falling apart. He lives in the Pacific Northwest, and the urban hellscape he is in is soul crushing. He's starving to death and stealing psychiatric medication from other people because it is the only way he can sleep without dreaming. And the court-appointed therapist that he is seeing is trying to figure out what is going on with him because he says when he sleeps and dreams, he alters reality. I don't really need to go into it any further than that. The book is phenomenal. It is one of the best science fiction books ever written, on top of being my favorite Le Guin novel, so everyone should check it out. Now, these top 4, you could rearrange number 2 through 3. Number 1 never changes. It's just locked in probably for the rest of my life, which is fine. I will take up the challenge of trying to unseat it. Let's get into number 4, and that is Passage at Arms by Glenn Cook. You know, I had to add Glenn Cook into this list, but it's not just because I'm a Glenn Cook stan. It's because Passage at Arms is a perfect military science fiction novel. It gets a little in the weeds with some of the techno babble, but if you're reading it eyes on paper, you can just gloss right over that stuff. It is tragic. It is beautiful. It is a story told from a wounded veteran. He lost his leg, and he is now a reporter or a journalist, and he is going on a mission with a ship that is essentially a submarine in space. So the way it works is these ships climb instead of diving like a submarine, but they climb by being under a certain mass and activating their like FTL drive, and instead of them traveling at faster than light, they basically dip into the nth dimension type thing, and while they're there, there's nothing. It's a void, but they're still traveling through space, but they're parallel to it in this dimension of nothing. And so they can't dissipate heat. So eventually the ship will just overheat and destroy itself and kill everyone inside. It's kind of like submarines diving. Eventually they run out of air. The whole story is about them during this war with these other people. It's just submarines, but in space, and it's perfect. If Glenn Cook knows anything, it's how to write about the Navy, be it in space or on the water. It has one of the most eloquent endings I've ever read. That last chapter is just gorgeous. I think about the end of this book probably an unhealthy amount. That is one thing that all of these books have in common, is they live rent-free in my head. I think about them way too much. Just different parts of every single one of these books is like a core part of what defines my love of science fiction. And so yeah, Passage at Arms, if you like military science fiction, you have to read it. It's a standalone. It's technically tied to the Starfishers trilogy, but it's a prequel, and it really has nothing to do with the Starfishers trilogy. There's literally a single scene in one of the Starfisher books that involves something from this book, so it doesn't matter. Just read Passage of Arms. If you're new to Glenn Cook, you can read this instead of the Black Company if you don't want to invest in a bunch of fantasy, because this book is just as good as some of the best Black Company novels. Now, we're in the top 3, and I know that some of y'all have been thinking, where is Dune? It has to be here. This nerd obviously likes Frank Herbert's writing. Look at all the other stuff he's put on this list. You know, I did the same thing Steve did. I put the best Dune novel up here, and that's God Emperor of Dune. This is the book that I think Frank Herbert wanted to write the whole time, but you know, you got to set it up with Dune and Messiah and Children of Dune, which is like super mid, but Children of Dune had to walk so that God Emperor of Dune could run. The book is perfect for me. Most people don't like it at all, and you know, whatever, that's fine. I like God Emperor of Dune because it is this psychological analysis of a man that was willing to do what no one else would, and that was do the very worst things possible to save humanity. Like, how far would you go if someone told you you have to be a monster and crush humanity in your fist, or the human race will cease to exist? Are you strong enough to do that? I love it. I think if I reread the series, I might not even reread the series. I might just start with God Emperor, because I haven't read Chapter House Dune, because by the time I got to it on my like third reading of the entire series, up to that point, like my brain was mush. The first time I read them, I only got up to God Emperor, and then I read them again, and I got to Heretics, and I was like, man, I ain't got no brain left. I'm gonna have to wait on this one. So God Emperor of Dune is perfect. I will hear no naysaying of the best Dune novel. And let's move on to number 2, which is probably the book that could come the closest to unseating number 1, Memory by Lois McMaster Bujold. I just read this not too long ago. Recency bias has nothing to do with this book being phenomenal. I can barely discuss it without becoming an emotional wreck, and it's not one of those like, oh, this devastated me because a character I like died or something. No, this book is, some people have said it before and no, it's not the exact same, but like this book is the changes of the Vorkosigan saga. Like changes in Dresden Files is like literally changes, like everything changes, but Memory is where the Vorkosigan saga sinks its claws into your brain and will never let go again. It is everything that Lois McMaster Bujold excels at, like her character work, her dialogue abilities, her plotting. I can just keep naming the things that books do because she excels at all of them. And I think that Memory has the hardest emotional impact in the series because it is like a breaking point for Miles. It's just a fabulous book. I will dig more into it when I get to my Vorkosigan binge video because I read 17 of them in 5 weeks. So yeah, that completely nuked my TBR for October. So maybe I'll get more into it then. Yeah, Memory is without a doubt the best Vorkosigan book, but it's like, it's a 100 and then there's like 4 of them that are like 99 out of 100. So when I say best, it's like barely the best, but that just goes to show the quality of the entire series. I could have put a bunch of other books here. We got to stop real quick. I messed up. I didn't put a Dungeon Crawler Carl book in the top 10. What am I doing? I'm just going to talk about it right now, and that's Butcher's Masquerade. Like, Dungeon Crawler Carl needed to be on this list. I don't know what happened. I guess I forgot. But yeah, Butcher's Masquerade is my favorite in the series, and it is because it is the turning point for Carl and the gang getting control of their future. It's when things get real. It's where death is not just on one side of the conflict. The crawlers get to bite back, and I think that Gate of the Feral Gods is kind of the first chunky book where you see kind of how the rest of the novels are going to be written, but I think that The Butcher's Masquerade is the one that refined what he was going to be doing for the rest of the series. So yeah, I forgot it in this. I don't know why, but I'm not going to re-record the whole video. So yeah, another honorable mention, or book 2.5 in the top 10 is Butcher's Masquerade by Matt Dinniman. And let's go to number 1. Now, number 1 has a special place in my heart because not only is it my favorite science fiction novel ever written, it could be my favorite fantasy novel ever written. Just like Heroes Die, Lord of Light by Roger Roger Zelazny is epic, I guess is the best way to put it. That is how it is written. It is epic prose, unlike anything that you see from other authors. The story is beautiful, and yes, I own a lot of copies of it. From start to finish, I adored it. The first chapter is rough, but it's only rough because it just drops you in and doesn't give you any information, and it doesn't tell you, hey bro, this is a flash forward to the middle of the story, and then we're going to start back over at the beginning at chapter 2, and it'll make sense eventually. I think it's very jarring. Like, if I was critical of the book at all, that first chapter is hard to get through, but once you kind of hunker down, you are in for one of the best stories ever written. I think that everything that Roger Zelazny excels at is in here. His humor, his ability to make this like dichotomy between grounded characters that feel like you and me, but also are somehow demigods, is just so interesting. He flawlessly shifts from a common conversation of like, hey, you got a cigarette I can have, to this prose that would fit in the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Bible. And I don't know how he does it. I will never be able to figure out how he does it, but I wish I could, because I would love to be able to write like that. It would take, I guess, me getting a master's degree in Jacobean literature in order to figure it out. I don't know. I think Zelazny was just on another level, especially with Lord of Light. There is a scene in here, the way he wrote it is like watching hope die. I don't understand how he was able to do that, but there is a scene that feels like you're having a piece of your soul ripped out by witnessing what happens. It's incredible. I cannot fathom how he came up with this. And so, hey, now that I'm done gushing about it, let's talk about what it's about. Oops, forgot to do that. Lord of Light takes place on another planet. The planet was colonized by a ship called the Star of India. When it got there, the people that controlled the ship decided, hey, we got this technology. What if we just like subjugated the planet and became gods? And they do. And they are the gods of the Hindu pantheon. One of them rebels. The way he rebels is by starting to spread the Buddhist religion, and he might be the Buddha. That's up to the reader to infer. This story was written in a way that you can't tell if it's science fiction or fantasy, because that was Zelazny's intent. You could be like, hey bro, you want to read this fantasy novel that's based on the Hindu gods and Buddhism and is epic in every way? And someone would be like, oh yeah, that's awesome. And then you'd be like, hey bro that hates fantasy, you want to read this science fiction novel about this planet where these people use advanced technology to turn themselves into gods and subjugate the entire planet? It works both ways, and it's just wonderful. Looking back at this list, I'm like, what do these have in common? I think that one thing that a lot of these have in common is the authors are all able to evoke very strong emotions from the reader. Maybe that's with their ability to invest you in a character, or maybe it's in their ability to put you in a place or a mindset that changes the way you think and feel. I'm not really sure. Maybe I should spend more unhealthy amounts of time thinking about these books and what they have done to me as a science fiction enjoyer. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if any of these books would be in your top 10 favorite science fiction novels of all time. Let me know what science fiction novel is your favorite. I'm probably going to add it to a TBR if I haven't read it, because I have a video about me ranking the top 50 like most popular, highest rated science fiction novels on Goodreads. And when I was going through it, I was like, holy crap, how have I read all of these? I don't understand. I thought I was a fantasy reader, not a science fiction reader. I keep wrestling with the fact that like I've read a lot of science fiction, and this isn't some like weird flex or anything. It's just that I was a sci-fi nerd long before I was a fantasy nerd, and I kind of forgot until I started really looking into my reading habits. Man, science fiction is awesome. I don't know what else to say. Thanks for watching, and with that, I'll see you next time.